Harp on Sports, the Bar, podcast, media, audio, and radio network. What do we have in store for you on this edition of the program? Billy Napier bags his man as Florida gets one of the top 8 quarterbacks in the country to decommit from the school that he's going to, Miami, commit to Florida. This, ready for this, is the most significant thing Billy Napier has done since beating Utah. He could win the rest of his games. This is a bigger deal. Rest of the games this season. I'm going to tell you why. Also, the Rays, the ending of a little bit of an era, right? The Rays are now rebuilding or retooling or reloading, the way you want to look at it. Probably retooling is a better term to use. As Kevin Kiermaier, option declined, and they should have at 13 plus million done. I look at the rest of this organization and where they sit today and what they're deciding to do. You know, Troy gets traded to the Pirates. They take on a guy that, I want to make sure I get this right. You know, when you make trades, sometimes the potential outweighs the present, and that's where they were with Troy because the guy that they get, Sam Hartman, Tommy John surgery, was a 4th-round pick of the Pirates a couple years ago. Really don't know what he can do. He's finally recovered from it, and here's a guy that was hitting into the last year of arbitration. They were going to keep him. So I'm going to look at where the Rays go from here. And also, you know, the I-4 war, USF, UCF, you know, the Soar on I-4. Yeah, go down a little bit farther, or you guys should come up a little bit closer to us where we live in Gainesville. It's where I'm at in Gainesville. And now I have the I-4, Soar, S-O-A-R, as talks of Jon Gruden, talks of Scott Frost to USF. It's a big deal. Which is the better of the two? I'm going to explore that as well. Remember, Harp on Sports, the Bar, podcast, media, audio, radio network, at Harp on Sports, Twitter, at Harp on Sports, Instagram, Harp on Sports, Auditory Route, Buzzsprout, Spotify, Apple Podcast. Also, Harp on Sports Facebook page, Harp on Sports, the YouTube channel, under the bar, and of course, harponsports.com. Let's start off with the Florida Gators. And, you know, Billy Napier right now has a top 10 recruiting class. He sits at what? 5-4. Numerous times I've talked about building a culture. Year one, what was it? Establish a culture, establish the ground floor. This is a remodeling job. Things are going to get uglier before they get better. Now, Brian Kelly came in and won right away at LSU. Billy Napier hasn't had that level of success. Ed Orgeron, you could say, had more in the cupboard. Ed Orgeron did a better job, Brian Kelly did a better job of hitting the transfer portal. Plus, gang, I'm here to tell you this, and it's kind of one of those crazy things when you take a step back and think about it. Brian Kelly's one of the top 5 or 6 coaches in college football. He had Notre Dame in the college football playoff twice. Now, they got whipped, but so does everybody else that plays Alabama and Clemson in that thing. Maybe with the exception of Ohio State. So, I mean, Notre Dame got there without an elite quarterback. Who gets there and has a chance at that thing without an elite quarterback? So, as I look at this, and I look at where they sit right now, I thought if Billy Napier in year one could have a top 10 recruiting class and land a potential signal caller, it was going to be a good year. On the field, 5-4. With the win over South Carolina, get to 6-4. If they lose to South Carolina, beat Vanderbilt, they're going to go to a bowl game. Who knows where that bowl game is? You'd like to go to a bowl game. You know, I see Las Vegas Bowl predictions. Okay. You really don't want to go out there and run into like Oregon and get buzzsawed. And, you know, maybe at the Gator Bowl, play like a Minnesota. That's fine. You don't want to play like a Penn State. You want a game that's winnable. But you also don't want to play Troy in Birmingham. So it's an interesting dynamic there. But Billy Napier landed a big one. When he was able to get Jaden Rashada to decommit from Miami and come to Florida, now he has himself, and depending on what recruiting site you look at, he's a top 7 quarterback. He's one of the top 7 quarterbacks in the country. Well, take a step back and think about that. You're landing a top 7 quarterback. Think about all the programs out there that land top 7 quarterbacks every year. And to get into that realm is everything. Now, I know certain Gator fans want him to recruit like Georgia and Alabama. That's not going to happen yet. Not the way he's doing it. He is doing a slow... he's doing a slow weight loss. Billy Napier's the type of guy that's like, I'm going to lose a pound a week. Coming up here in, 4 months, I'm going to have lost almost 20 pounds. That's a realistic goal. Top 5 or top 3 recruiting class should be competing with Georgia. Now you're doing the fad weight loss diet where you lose 15 pounds in a week. That's not going to work. It's not going to sustain. Just what he's trying to do culturally, trying to get the right people here. Because let's face it, you've had some questionable characters. But what program hasn't? But he needs to establish a culture, and he's doing that. That's why Jaden Rashada chose Florida. Why he flipped. He said, Napier, they talked to me. They kept on me, always reaching out, talking to me more about football. If it should be about football, it should be about winning. Jaden Rashada made it crystal clear that it was more about football. It was more than football. That's what Billy Napier reached out on a human level. So, Florida, if they can have a top 10 recruiting class and they land themselves a top 7 quarterback, I think about elite programs, the elite quarterbacks. Bo Nix transferred to Oregon. Okay, but look around college football. Look what Alabama does. Clemson's struggling this year, but they're usually in that fold, aren't they? Texas has Arch Manning coming in. Think about the job like Lincoln Riley's done at USC. Think about what Duggan and TCU with Sonny Dykes. I don't know if you call him elite, but he's putting together elite numbers. An athletic guy that can throw the ball down the field. He's in this realm. Jaden Rashada is in the, and I'm not overstating. I'm probably overstating this, but the way he plays, it's more of a Justin Fields, Jalen Hurts type of way that he plays, although he's taller than those guys. So he got it done here. That was the one missing jewel. He hadn't landed the top 10 quarterback, and he got a top 10 quarterback. That's what you want. He did it. So, to me, this is bigger than, with the exception of beating Utah to start and get things rolling, this is the biggest thing that he's done since he's come to Florida. It is. You land top 10 quarterbacks? Think about Florida's, you got to crawl before you can walk, right? So, Florida's goal this year is to probably go to a bowl game. Winning it, of course, but the winning record, like I said at the beginning of the year, if they get to 7-5 and get to a bowl game, good. You get to that, let's say they end up in the Birmingham Bowl or the Gator Bowl. You don't want to play Notre Dame in that thing, not the way they're playing right now, but let's say you end up in the Birmingham Bowl and you play Georgia Southern. I don't know who'd even feed into that thing, Marshall. And you win. Okay, now I got a bowl. It's not the sexiest bowl, but I got a bowl win, year one. All right, now where do I go? Now how do I build? And you take that 7-5, 8-5, and then you turn that into 9-3 next year. That's the type of thing that you want to do if you're Billy Napier. Now, Anthony Richardson, the best thing for Jaden Rashada is Anthony Richardson to come back. The best thing for Anthony Richardson is to come back. Although, if they're saying top 15, first round pick, oh boy. I still don't know how that's going to happen because he can't throw the ball 40 yards down the field. But, okay. Like, oh, look at his capability, ability to run. Yeah, Patrick Mahomes and those guys have that too in the NFL, Josh Allen. But they also have cannons, throw the ball 50 yards on the field on a dime. He can't do that, he just throws it down the field. Becomes Malik Willis is who Anthony Richardson is right now at the next level. May want to sit back and a little more seasoning for a year. But this is big. This is big for Billy Napier. And he's basically assured a top 10 recruiting class now with landing Jaden Rashada. Now, there's some more work that he has to do, but he's basically assured himself a top 10 recruiting class. I think I've told Gator fans at the beginning of the year, how do you become a top 10, top 15 team? You land top 10 talent. So let's say for argument's sake, they finish 10. Okay, then next year you'd make a couple more moves. You bring a couple guys in. This crop builds you up. You finish in the top 20, top 15 in college football. All right, now you land yourself a top 8 class. Okay, next year, 2024, 2025, have some more success, get to 10-2, more competitive with Georgia. Maybe you beat Georgia right there in that realm. Okay, now you land yourself a top 5 class. That's the type of building, realistic building that Billy Napier is doing. So Jaden Rashada, the biggest thing that Billy Napier's done since beating Utah way, way back in week 1. All right, from that to this. Staying in the state of Florida, we have the I-4 on I-4 down by Orlando. And a big, ugly building. I kind of know what they're doing with it now, but boy, oh boy. Well, it's supposed to be a religious center, just bizarre. Well, USF and UCF, although it's farther down, they have the war on I-4. And it's a neat little rivalry in the state of Florida. National exposure, not quite there. Was there a little bit more when UCF was cooking, when Scott Frost was there, when Josh Heupel was there? But the talk now, Gus Malzahn at UCF, he's establishing that thing, his own method of moving things around. And I think that, they're an 8-4, 10-2, 11-1 program. Here he comes. He had to get some things, and they've struggled a little bit. Struggled the expectations of going 12-0 every year. But he needs to rebuild that, and he's doing that. Enter USF. USF disaster, right? Trying to hire big-name coordinators. They tried to bring in Charlie Strong. They've tried all sorts of things, and it has not worked. Now, Willie Taggart did a nice job there. Was he getting them to 8-4? Willie Taggart did a nice job before he left to go to Oregon, Florida State, and whatnot. But it just, ever since Willie Taggart left, haven't been able to establish anything there. Anything. So the talk of Jon Gruden and Scott Frost, yeah. Boosters love Jon Gruden. They want Jon Gruden to stay. They want Jon Gruden to stay in the Tampa area. Well, she's going to stay in the Tampa area. And run it. Build it. Jon Gruden means something to my generation. To the generation behind us. A little less. He's known as a broadcaster. My generation, I remember, was a Raiders coach who went to the Super Bowl and won a Super Bowl with the Bucs. The generation behind me knows him as a broadcaster. Generation behind that knows him as a failed football coach that got into trouble with the Raiders. So, X's and O's and his ability and his knowledge translate. Is he going to be able to handle 4-8, 6-6? Is he going to be able to handle that? Maybe. In the college ranks, maybe not nearly as much pressure, recruiting. And at USF, it's recruiting. He doesn't have to compete with the Georgias and the Alabamas. It's a different type of recruiting, right? And Jon Gruden can kind of look around and go, oh, you're unhappy at Florida State. Oh, you're unhappy at LSU. Oh, come here. What Jon Gruden would bring you is some cachet. Now, would you be the elite group of 5? No, and we really don't have an elite group of 5. Cincinnati, but they're joining the Big 12. So's USF, right? Or UCF. So if you're Jon Gruden, you're looking around, okay, what do I do with USF? I've got Tampa. I've got this major media market. What Jon Gruden would give USF is a little bit of a wink, wink, eye into what? The Big 12. Jon Gruden would bring the Big 12 into the fold for USF. It would. The Big 12 about ready to lose Texas and Oklahoma. What are they adding? They're adding BYU, adding Cincinnati, adding UCF, and adding Houston, right? Well, UCF, USF right down. Could we do that? Jon Gruden would bring that cachet. I don't know if Scott Frost would bring that cachet. Gruden would. And now you're not going to add the program just for Jon Gruden. No, you're not going to do that. But as the Big 12 looks around and goes, okay, we're at 14 now? We're at 12. We're 12, 14. Do we want to add a couple more here? USF with Jon Gruden becomes extremely more exciting and interesting. Just do. Look at the job that Luke Fickell did at Cincinnati. Made them more interesting to the Big 12. So that's the Gruden effect. Now, as I look at it from the Scott Frost perspective, obviously he had a ton of success in this state. He took UCF to new heights, and you talk about greatness. Think about this. The 2 former UCF coaches coaching in the USF-UCF rivalry, in which the head coach at UCF, the biggest dark eye or black eye that he got was losing to UCF by the guy that now coaches USF. It's just crazy. That's if they go the Scott Frost route. Should they? Yeah, both of those guys are fine, good quality candidates. They need to do something like that. Now, would Scott Frost want to come? I don't know. Seem to have success in the state. And again, you put enough dollar signs behind somebody, they're going to come. Now, to get Scott Frost, what are you looking at? I'm thinking you're looking at $4 million, $3.5, $4 million to get Gruden. Boosters, we got the money. Okay, if you go at Gruden and you swing and miss, and he wants 5, 5.5, or 5, and you swing and miss, or 4 and you swing and miss, what's Frost going to want at that point? It's kind of like when coaches swing and miss, and we'll offer you $6 million a year. Okay, it didn't get me. Now we're going to hire or interview you. Okay, we'll offer you 3. Wait, I know you've got the money. You had 6. Well, he's 1 more. It's still the same coaching position. That's going to be the curve there. And those two if they land either of those guys, it's great. Gruden helps you national scope wise, Big 12, that next step. And you need to get in a big conference if you're USF. You do. Scott Frost may help you more on a football scope. But Scott Frost, see, here's the thing. If Scott Frost goes like 8-4 or 6-6, 8-4, 11-1, somebody's going to give him another head coaching job. I think Jon Gruden Jon Gruden's not going to go back to the NFL. He's pretty set. Jon Gruden going to leave USF to go to where? Georgia Tech? It's not going to happen. Nebraska? Not going to happen. So those things way out. But if they add either of those guys, good for them. You know, I did think about that. If I'd have told you 5 years ago, hey, the coaches at the USF UCF rivalry are going to be Gus Malzahn and Scott Frost. You'd be like, Scott Frost never left UCF? Oh, yeah, he did. He went to Nebraska, and Gus Malzahn got fired at Auburn, and he came to USF or UCF, and now Scott Frost has worked his way back to USF. It'd be great. Good for that rivalry. It's not quite, and I kind of look at it, and I wish my school would do this, my alma mater. I kind of look at what happened in Central Michigan where they landed Jim McElwain. He's a good coach. They're struggling a little bit this year, but he's a good coach. Couldn't handle the big, or didn't fit Florida, the big scope, too much. But there you go. I would love to see my alma mater at Western Michigan go pick up a Scott Frost or go pick up somebody that didn't work at a major program. It'd be fun. And coaches are taking jobs like that now. The schools can pay more money. And something can be said for being a head coach as opposed to being a coordinator. You got to run something. I'm always leery of hiring coordinators. I'd much rather have a head coach, somebody that's run something. All right. I'm going to wrap with this. The Rays. It's a Rays retooling, Rays reloading. Kiermaier option not picked up, $13.5 million. I get it. Gosh, I look at all this. And He-Man Cho, fourth, you trade him for a guy that used to be a fourth-round pick, or that was a fourth-round pick. This Sam Hartman, coming off Tommy John surgery. Who knows what that dude's going to be? But he's pitched a little bit. He pitched like 30 innings last year. He had Tommy John surgery in, 21? So here we go. They get a guy that they can figure out what they want to do in the rotation. And Choi was ready to hit arbitration for the fourth time. He was going to make, $6 or $7 million? So that was it. So they shave about $18 million in payroll. And this is what the Rays do. And the model that everybody should follow is what the Braves did. And the Rays kind of did that. The Rays started that with Wander Franco. They started that with Wander Franco. And some people say, well, they need to get this done so they can get a big deal done with Arozarena. Well, maybe. Randy Arozarena is 27, 28. And the way that this is structured right now, they got 4 years of arbitration coming with Arozarena. So this year will probably make $4 million, $5 million. Next year will probably make 9, 15, 22. That's what they have. So why do a massive 8-year deal for $200 million with him, or whatever he's going to want, when you can basically sit around and do this arbitration game and do 4 years 50, 4 years 65, and then at that point he's 31, and then if you think about the math on this, if you're doing 10 years 200, or I can basically sit around, or 8 years 200, I can sit around and do 4 years 70. Is he going to be 4 years 130 at the age of 31? See, if you're going to do the long-term Wander Franco deal, you basically got to get him when they're like 20, 21. I look at some of these, like Austin Riley with the Braves, 10, 2, 12. Yeah, that's a massive deal. And I get it because he's 21 and his earning value is going to hit arbitration at 23. Rosarena's hitting it at 27 or 24. I look around, bam, bam, bam. I'm trying to get some other guys in here. Was it Michael Harris? 8 years, $72 million. Just looking at some of these contracts that were done over time here. The Wander Franco deal was $11,182. That's a massive one. Very similar to Austin Riley. So if you can find that guy and give him that massive deal, that's fine, because that's what the Braves did. The Braves just loaded and loaded and loaded. The thing about Kiermaier is you have two guys that are considered top 20 Rays prospects. Plus you've got Lau, you got a Rosarena. Your outfield was kind of packed a little bit. Now it frees up some things. And I look around and you've got a couple guys coming up through the pipeline. Cam Missler, 16 home runs last year, AA. He'll be spring training invitee, maybe hovering around AAA this year. But that's a dude that hit 16 home runs. And the big one is Gilberto Hernandez, who, ready for this? last year hit 24 home runs and drove in almost 100 runs. He's first baseman outfielder. So that's another reason Choi can go, because Choi last year, $7 million, or I've got Roberto Hernandez, who, again, maybe at AAA to start the year, but I've got this crop just waiting. So that's where the Rays are, and the Rays have tons of shortstops. And you look at their prospect list and what they have at the minor league level, 20 guys, the waiting to come up. Baseball America has a great little rundown on this. I get it. Kiermaier, fan favorite. Now, look, it looks like he's gone, and Kiermaier can land in a variety of places that need defensive center fielders. That guy's probably going to get a 3-year, $30 million deal somewhere. But what the Rays have coming up, the Rays window was 2 years ago when they lost to the Red Sox. They had a 2-year run there, and that's just the way they're built. And look, people say, "Oh, that's not how a lot of teams are built, with the exception of the Dodgers and maybe the Braves. Even the Yankees aren't built like that. The Cardinals are always there, but the way the Rays team is built, you've got to retool this thing. They got some good pitching coming up. And I get these moves. You kind of look around and go, oh man, fan favorite. Oh man, fan favorite. They've been around forever. Well, the Rays get these guys right up into the end, and then they let them go before they become. What the Rays do is they don't get emotional. What do they tell you? Don't get emotional about housing. Don't get emotional about real estate. You overpay for a house because you love it. Oh, look, it's great. Can't get emotional about that. It's a business transaction. And that's what the Rays have done. And look, even big pro, like was it Correa that the Astros let go because they had another young shortstop coming up? You've got to make those decisions. Even the Astros do that, although the Astros spend more money. But the Rays, following this approach that the Braves made, you're going to have two of these young guys that are coming up through the minors pan out. Then all of a sudden you give them Wander Franco type deals and you've got a core. So the Braves method's the right method if you're not a big market. And letting these guys go, it's necessary at this point. It's just necessary. You're not rebuilding. You still got ace in the mound, right? The glass now. You still have, and you got 2 more years for him, right? You can hold 2 years. 1 year you can move him, but Franco coming into his prime, or Rosarina, Lau. You still have a nice little core here, but got to make some room. So this year's going to be kind of one of those, oh man, transition years. These guys come up 2 years from now. Rays should be right back up there again. Harp on Sports, the Bar, podcast, media, audio, radio network. Got to thank Coach Spurrier and Freddie Wiebe for their HBC Bull shirt. Steve Spurrier, the only coach in college football, winningest coach at 2 different Power 5 programs. How about that? So thanks, Freddie. Thanks, Coach. Because South Carolina, Florida coming up this weekend, right? Harp on Sports, the Bar, podcast, media, audio, radio network. At Harp on Sports Twitter, at Harp on Sports Instagram. Auditory Route, Buzzsprout, Spotify, Apple Podcast. The Bar there. Harp on Sports, the Facebook page. Harp on Sports, the YouTube channel under the Bar. And of course, harponsports.com. Remember, stay clean, stay focused, stay strong. Frankenstein. Have fun with your friends.